Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
The United Nations Secretary-General Kofi Annan expressed his satisfaction and optimism regarding the results of discussions carried out between the Special Verification Team envoy, Terry Rode Larson, and Syrian President Bashar al-Assad on the implementation of Resolution 1559. This statement comes as the Syrian ambassador in Washington, Imad Mustafa, confirms that his government's position is clear and that it absolutely does not intervene in internal Lebanese affairs. In response to America's accusations that Syria's secret service remains in Lebanon, Mustafa said that Washington is trying to create a justification to invade Syria. Damascus responded to a new wave of escalation by America against Syria. The state media was put on alert, and analysts responded to the latest American allegations, which accused Syria of not having completely withdrawn all its members of the Secret Service from Lebanon. The escalation increased after statements were made, saying that Syria has put out a blacklist targeting the Lebanese opposition. Syria responded by saying that the U.S. president's accusations are evidence of America's disappointment over the developments taking place in Lebanon. Damascus relied on the UN report that came out after its withdrawal from Lebanon, which confirmed the pullout of Syrian forces from Lebanon. The UN Special Verification Team envoy, Terry Rode Larson, visited Damascus to understand Syria's position regarding the return of the UN verification team on the Syrian withdrawal from Lebanon, which was received positively according to media statements here.
2 months ago, the United Nations sent a team and searched everywhere. It even reached Deir al-Ashyar, a Syrian village outside Damascus. It released a clear report that Syria left all its military and intelligence sites in Lebanon. Despite all this, America is exerting pressure to send a new verification team. This is an attack on the credibility of the United Nations. Why are they saying this?
A Syrian source said that the wave of accusations against his country, which he described as baseless, will create divisions between the American and Syrian people. Meanwhile, people here are convinced that Washington will continue its escalation against Syria. This is what is expected during the upcoming visit of Condoleezza Rice to the region.
What we want are guarantees from other parties, especially the United States. Will the U.S. accept the results and the process of Terry Rode Larson to verify Syrian cooperation with the United Nations?
There is an indication. The U.S. ambassador to Syria, Margaret Scobie, left Damascus after the assassination of former Lebanese Prime Minister Rafik al-Hariri and has not returned yet. Every time Damascus closes the door to American intervention, Washington opens up another. This is the analysis of the deteriorating relationship between the two countries. A Syrian official said that his country will not give Washington a justification on a silver platter to invade the country.
Parliamentary elections took place in the district of Baghdad, Alay, where Parliament member Talal Arsalan fell short of winning the elections. The election results led to clashes and commotions between the parties. The most recent confrontation took place in the town of Shweifat.
Arsalan's supporters took to the streets of Shweifat in a full-scale protest, an image that has not been seen since 1996. The Lebanese army tried to stop Arsalan's supporters from entering Arsalan's campaign center. The center has been under siege since last night due to the exchange of gunfire between armed men in vehicles belonging to the Social Progressive Party and security guards at the Arsalan center. The offensive measures taken by the army resulted in anger in the streets.
نحن عم نعبر عن موقف سياسي
We are expressing our political views that we talked about before our campaign and reported in the news media. Any attack on any person in the town of Shuwaifat is a direct and a personal attack on me. It is not acceptable to treat people as parties. The election is over and congratulations to whoever won. Our offices and homes are open to serve the people and serve this national party along with Michel Aoun, and nobody shall stand in our way.
The protests of Arsalan's supporters escalated into physical clashes with the Lebanese army. Protesters pushed and shoved army officers and vandalized property. The protest resulted in a number of minor injuries. The leader of the Lebanese Democratic Party called on the people to refrain from carrying out any assaults on army personnel and not to divert the attention from the real enemy.
Do not clash with the army. The army is not our enemy. Do not divert your attention from your real enemy, who is Saad al-Hariri. Again, the enemy is not the army. Saad al-Hariri is responsible for what is happening. His embezzled and laundered money, which is brought from abroad, is being used to divide people and stir up problems between the Lebanese. Do not let the corruption divide you.
Units of security forces immediately headed toward the Lebanese Democratic Party headquarters, and intensive calls have been made to resolve the conflict. Arsalan's supporters did not comply with army orders, insisting on staying by their leader, even if it means giving up their lives for him.
Sources from Baghdad's local municipality said that the reason behind the shortage of drinking water in various parts of the city is due to acts of vandalism. Some people have broken main water pipelines and used the water for personal purposes. Baghdad's municipality took a series of measures against some of the violators, in addition to increasing water supply. The absence of municipal services in various residential districts in Baghdad has threatened the lives of many citizens. There is no clean drinking water in many homes because water has been contaminated due to the damaged water supply lines and due to the absence of water purification systems. This tragic situation is rather obvious in the areas of Kamaliya, Al-Ubaidiyya, Al-Mu'aqin, and Al-Fadiliyya, which inherited this unhealthy situation from the policies of the former regime.
Our children are dying of thirst. We have no water to drink or bathe during this heat wave. All of my children are very dirty. Where can we go? Where are we going to go to get water? We do not live near a beach or a river.
We don't have any water, not even drinking water. Since 5 o'clock, we came here hoping to get a drop of water.
The water has been cut off in these areas for the past 3 days. The water shortage throughout the year forced citizens to look for different ways to find water. They are forced to dig wells, hoping to get some water.
We dug a well, but we did not find any water. So what can we do in this situation? We don't have enough water for our home needs or to wash. I have been forced to dig wells, but because I have been forced to drink salt water, I got sick. I've been sick and I suffered from diarrhea for the past week, and God is my witness. May God have mercy on us.
Baghdad's municipality explained that the shortage of drinking water has been caused by those who steal water from water pipelines and use it for irrigation and washing cars.
Our information indicates that less water is being pumped through the main pumps in Al-Rasafa because the network of water pipe systems is very poor. This network can't handle more water pressure. If we increase the amount of pressure, then the water pipes would be destroyed under the ground. Also, some citizens are stealing water from main water pumps. What they are doing is illegal.
Resolving the daily problems that the Iraqi people are going through should be as important as resolving other issues. That is, if we assume that we want to reconstruct Iraq in a balanced manner. Raziq Al-Adaili, Al-Iraqiya, Baghdad.
Suicide bombers struck again at the Iraqi army, killing and injuring dozens of them. A car bomb exploded near an Iraqi police patrol in southern Baghdad, killing at least 10 people and wounding 29. Earlier, a suicide bomber blew himself up at an army mess hall north of the capital, killing at least 23 soldiers and wounding about 30. Meanwhile, an Australian hostage was freed by Iraqi and US forces after 6 weeks in captivity. Alia Tuqan has the details.
2 major bomb attacks in one day. The car bomb explosion in Al-Zafarani district in southern Baghdad left 10 people dead and 29 others injured. Among the dead were civilians and police. The explosion near an Iraqi police patrol in southern Baghdad blew a crater in the road and damaged half a dozen cars, including several police vehicles. Earlier, a suicide bomber wearing an Iraqi army uniform killed at least 23 people and injured another 20 at an army mess hall north of Baghdad. The building was left charred and ruined after the blast in the town of Khalis near Baquba. One policeman died of wounds sustained yesterday when gunmen attacked a police convoy in the Iraqi northern city of Kirkuk. Another policeman was still recovering in hospital. The attack took place close to a major bank branch in the center of the city. Also yesterday, saboteurs blew up a domestic oil pipeline in the northern refinery city of Baji. The bomb blew off a section of the oil pipeline, setting it on fire and sending thick black smoke pouring from it. As the string of attacks and suicide bombings continues in Iraq, some had reason to celebrate. Australian hostage Douglas Wood was rescued from his Iraqi captors in a military operation conducted by Iraqi and US forces. There was no word on the operation itself or whether there were any casualties. 63-year-old Wood has been held captive since early May and is now under the protection of Australian troops in Baghdad.
Mr. Douglas Wood is safe from his captors. Mr. Wood was recovered a short while ago in Baghdad in a military operation that I'm told was conducted by Iraqi forces in cooperation in a general way with force elements of the United States. He's now under the protection of the Australian Emergency Response Team in Baghdad. I know that all Australians will be jubilant at this news. This man has suffered immensely.
The Australian Foreign Minister said Wood was undergoing medical tests.
That physically he seemed to be in quite good shape. He was quite happy with the way he seemed just by looking at him, but of course medical tests are being done now. Mentally, obviously, absolutely exhausted.
The release of Wood and that of a French journalist 3 days ago gave hope that security in Iraq was getting better. But what about the continuous suicide bombings and insurgent attacks? Alia Tuqan, Jordan Television.
Akbar Hashemi Rafsanjani remained a favorite for president on the last day of campaigning, but was far from sure of winning the closest election in Iran's history. The 70-year-old Rafsanjani told CNN yesterday the time was right for a new chapter in Iran-US ties, but said Washington should gain Iran's trust by unblocking billions of dollars of frozen assets. Polls in the country of 67 million people show Rafsanjani, who is bidding to regain the post he held from 1989 to 1997, remains short of the 50% support he needs to avoid a runoff against his closest rival. His nearest challengers are reformist Mustafa Mouin and conservative Mohammed Baqir Qalibaf. Friday's vote may determine how Iran handles its atomic standoff with the West and whether it sticks to the bumpy path of reform initiated by outgoing cleric Mohammad Khatami. The campaign has broken taboos in the Islamic State, with many of the 8 candidates pledging to resume talks with Washington.
Spanish Minister Miguel Moentinos warns that a new form of anti-Semitism is spreading through Europe, generated by Muslims. IBA's Leah Zinder was in Córdoba this week to attend the OSCE conference on combating anti-Semitism and other forms of intolerance. She asked the Spanish foreign minister about the new anti-Semitism.
I think now that there has been in Europe the traditional anti-Semitism, that we know how to fight against it, how to be alert of it. But there's a new elements of anti-Semitism in Europe that has been, in certain occasions, provoked by some Islamic communities and some groups. So the best way to fight that is to have the opportunity to discuss with Islamic groups and Islamic communities in order to understand each other better. So that would be the best way to be efficient in the new wave of anti-Semitism in Europe.
What do you think about the connection to the Middle East conflict and the way that Israel is portrayed in the media?
You can't have any kind of opinion and attitude about the evolution of the Middle East peace conflict, but that cannot justify any attitude or any reaction, anti-Semitic reaction. I mean, that should be absolutely eradicated, no?
But do you think that the way in which Israel is depicted in, say, the Spanish media contributes to anti-Semitism?
Well, I think there has been an amalgam, no? Everybody identified or make the confusion between Israel, the Israeli policy, and anti-Semitism. So we have to be very clear. You cannot have anti-Semitic attitude whatever happened in the Middle East, no?
And so do you think there's anything that Israel could do to try to fight what you call the new form of Muslim anti-Semitism in the world?
Well, I think it's already doing. I mean, the Israeli government is trying to open to the Arab and Islamic world. That's what we are trying to help on European Union. We are now in this Barcelona process to have a better understanding and creating confidence building between Arab countries in Israel and Islamic countries in Israel. And I think both sides have to eliminate some a priori and some misperceptions. So they have to talk and to engage and to respect each other better.
Heading the U.S. delegation at the OSCE conference was New York Governor George Pataki, who told IBA reporter Leah Zinder that he considers anti-Semitism a unique form of intolerance.
I thought as a child growing up, a decade, 2 decades after the Holocaust, that anti-Semitism was a tragic blunder of the past. But unfortunately today we see around the world new incidents of violence against Jews and anti-Semitic acts, and we cannot tolerate this. We have to speak up, we have to prosecute, we have to take action, and we have to prevent small seeds of anti-Semitism growing into great examples of horrid anti-tolerance.
There is controversy at this conference on the issue of distinctness. There is an attempt to combine the problem of anti-Semitism with other problems such as Islamophobia, xenophobia, and other forms of intolerance. What is the United States' position on this?
we have to fight against all forms of intolerance, including anti-Muslim, anti-Christian, other forms of intolerance. But in my view, anti-Semitism is unique. As I expressed in my speech on behalf of the United States, because of its history, because of its potential for growth, it is unique, and we must treat anti-Semitism separate. We have to go after all forms of intolerance, but we have to focus on anti-Semitism because we see from the lesson of the Holocaust what can happen when we allow those seeds to grow, and it's just not acceptable. And to just lump it in and say we have to be against tolerance, of course we're against intolerance. We're against all forms of intolerance, but we continue to focus on anti-Semitism. And one of the points I made in my speech was the analysis of anti-Semitism that the noted historian Paul Johnson wrote about, that it is a disease of the mind capable of spreading, not just among individuals, but capturing entire governments and communities. And that's why we have to stress its importance to fight.
It's sad, is it not, that as we move into the 21st century, anti-Semitism that so tragically and hugely dominated the 20th century is still very much with us.
It's just wrong. And to me, it's stunning that, as I said, when the memory of the Holocaust, when tens of thousands of survivors of the Holocaust are still among us, telling their stories of horror, that anyone could remotely conceive of engaging in new acts of anti-Semitism. And yet we see it in Europe, we see it in the United States. And, of course, we see it in the Middle East, and we have to continue to fight it every single day in every way we can. Obviously, particularly in the Middle East, there have been demonic leaders like Saddam Hussein who were able to cover up their own failures, their own barbarity, their own massacring of thousands of innocent individuals by pointing to Israel as the source of all problems. That, to me, is a form of anti-Semitism, because they're not arguing against Israel as a democratic state. They're just saying, aha, the Jewish state is the reason that so many people in Iraq or so many people in other countries are suffering.
A
source from the Israeli occupation entity revealed new information about the spy scandal on American security secrets that were taken by Larry Franklin for Israel. The list of allegations against Franklin included 6 charges, most importantly, leaking sensitive information on Iran to a Jewish American lobby group and trying to influence U.S. President George Bush's decision to take a stronger stance towards Iran. The list of American charges against the former American official in charge of the Iran section in the Department of Defense, Larry Franklin, revealed more information about the Israeli entity's involvement in spying on sensitive security information, especially those involved in official American reports on Iran. The 6 charges made against Franklin confirm that his spying on behalf of the Israeli occupation was not only through 2 senior officials from the AIPAC organization, which is considered the largest Jewish lobby in the United States, but he also worked directly with the Israeli occupation through the head of the political branch in the Israeli embassy in Washington, Noar Galon. The charges revealed that the FBI recorded 14 phone calls between Franklin and Galon, and that he sent a secret document to the embassy, including information on Iran's nuclear program. It is known that the AIPAC organization, which flexed its muscles in the United States during its annual conference at the end of last month, fired the official responsible for policy in the group, Stephen Rosen, and the official responsible for the Iranian file, Kit Wiseman, after the scandal linking them in the lawsuit and after an investigation by the FBI. The list of charges reveals that Rosen and Franklin were to be transferred to the U.S. National Security Council in order to be close to President George Bush. However, the list does not offer any major secret about the motivation of this Pentagon official to spy for the interests of the Israeli occupation. Franklin wanted to please the members of the Israeli occupation, who occupy senior positions in the Pentagon, and in return they would have him promoted. The Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice, who represented the American administration at the AIPAC conference last month, was the key figure that helped authorities uncover the spy scandal in 2001. After that, the Federal Bureau of Investigation took over, and Franklin was caught red-handed while he was leaking sensitive information about Iran to an AIPAC representative. Presidential candidate Mohsen Ridai announced that he will withdraw from the elections only 2 days before the election date. Meanwhile, presidential candidate Hashim Rafsanjani announced that the time might be right to open a new page in American-Iranian relations, on the condition that Washington shows that it has good intentions and would release the frozen Iranian funds estimated at billions of dollars. For the first time since the Islamic Revolution prevailed in Iran, improving the economy, elevating the living standards, fighting inflation and corruption have dominated the election campaigns. Election campaigns are no longer based on ideological agendas. Issues such as protecting civil liberties and political reforms are no longer under the spotlight, which is the opposite of what has been happening in the past 8 years.
I think that the most important quality that the presidential candidate must have is focusing on the economic problems that the Iranians have been suffering from.
In addition to domestic demands which focus on improving the economy and elevating the living standards, outstanding international problems, Hashim Rafsanjani, who will most likely win, gave an interview to the American CNN channel in which he said that it might be the right time to open a new page in relations between Washington and Tehran, but based on many conditions.
If the U.S. wants to establish better relations with Iran, then it must do more to regain Iran's confidence, such as releasing the Iranian funds which have been frozen in American banks since the Islamic Revolution. This will be a good gesture. If the Americans are sincere in their desire to work with Iran, then I think that this is the right time to open a new page in our relations with the U.S. Iran will not completely give up its plans to enrich depleted uranium, as Washington wants. However, Tehran is willing to give guarantees that its nuclear facilities will not be used to make bombs.
This interview reminds us of the interview that President Mohammad Khatami gave to the same channel at the beginning of his term in office 8 years ago. However, 8 years later, the lack of confidence between the two countries has increased despite Khatami's policy of confidence building.
As Republicans and Democrats, we are discussing a bill that would give the European Union more leverage in its negotiations with Iran. We should not depend on giving Iran incentives. We must also look into Iran's unique weak points. Iran heavily depends on oil revenue. We are proposing to put a stop to these new revenues until Iran says yes to the European Union.
Tehran has gained sufficient immunity from those who want to impose a boycott on Iran. In any case, the nuclear file has been put on the shelf until the next president is elected. Observers believe that signs of improving relations between Washington and Tehran are only the tip of the iceberg that covers a lot of outstanding problems, including the Middle East conflict, Iran's nuclear program, and the issue of separating religion from politics, not to mention that relations between the two countries have been constrained for the past 25 years. Nibal Bahrouz, Al-Alam, Tehran.
The views expressed on Mosaic are not those of Link TV or its sponsors, but of the broadcasters themselves. Mosaic is made possible by a grant from the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, which promotes journalism excellence worldwide and invests in the vitality of 26 U.S. communities, and the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation. Additional support is provided by the Firedoll Foundation and Henry and Virgilia Dakin.